The emergency room at St. Mary's Hospital buzzed with controlled urgency as 29-year-old Sarah Mitchell finished her 12-hour shift, exhaustion weighing heavily on her shoulders. As a registered nurse in the trauma unit, Sarah had dedicated her life to caring for others, but the demanding schedule and modest salary made it difficult to care for herself and her aging mother, whose medical bills had been mounting steadily. Sarah had been working double shifts whenever possible, trying to save enough money to move her mother to a better assisted living facility. Tonight, as she prepared to head home to her small apartment, the hospital's emergency alarm system announced an incoming trauma patient requiring immediate blood transfusion. Dr. Martinez rushed past Sarah toward the trauma bay. "Sarah, we need you to stay. Critical car accident victim, massive blood loss, and we are running dangerously low on his blood type." Sarah glanced at the clock, knowing she had promised to visit her mother that evening, but the urgency in Dr. Martinez's voice made the decision for her. "What blood type do we need?" "AB negative universal plasma donor. It is rare, and our blood bank is almost empty." Sarah felt her heart skip. "I am AB negative," she said immediately. "How much do you need?" Dr. Martinez looked at her with surprise and relief. "Sarah, you just finished a 12-hour shift. Donating blood right now would not be advisable." "Doctor, if someone is dying and I can help save them, that is what we do," Sarah replied firmly. "Besides, I am young and healthy. I can handle it." 20 minutes later, Sarah sat in the donation chair, watching her blood flow through the tube that would soon help save a stranger's life. She felt lightheaded from fatigue and the donation, but there was something deeply satisfying about knowing that her blood might give someone else a chance to live. The patient, she learned from the medical team, was a 34-year-old man who had been involved in a serious car accident. He had lost consciousness and required emergency surgery, but the blood transfusion Sarah provided had stabilized him enough for the surgeons to operate successfully. Sarah never saw the patient's face. By the time she had recovered from her donation and completed her paperwork, he had been taken to surgery and then to the intensive care unit. She went home that night knowing only that she had helped save someone's life, which felt like payment enough for her sacrifice. 3 weeks later, Sarah was working her usual morning shift when the unit secretary approached her with a puzzled expression. "Sarah, there is a man here asking to speak with you specifically. He says he has something important to discuss, but he is not a patient or family member." Sarah looked up from her patient charts, curious about who might be looking for her. In the family waiting area, she saw a man in an expensive navy suit who appeared to be in his mid-30s. He had dark hair and was holding a small bouquet of flowers, standing next to a little girl who appeared to be about 5 years old. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" the man asked as she approached, his voice carrying a mixture of nervousness and gratitude. "I am," Sarah replied. "How can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "My name is David Harrison, and this is my daughter Emma. 3 weeks ago, you saved my life by donating your blood during my emergency surgery." Sarah felt her breath catch as she realized she was meeting the patient whose life she had helped save. "Mr. Harrison, I am so glad to see that you recovered." "Well, how are you feeling?" David's eyes filled with emotion. "I am completely recovered, thanks to you. The doctors told me that without your blood donation I might not have survived the surgery. You gave me the chance to come home to my daughter, Little." Emma stepped forward and handed Sarah the bouquet. "These are for you, Miss Sarah. Daddy says you are the reason he is still here to take care of me." Sarah knelt down to Emma's level, accepting the flowers with a heart full of warmth. "Thank you, Emma. These are beautiful. I am just happy your daddy is okay." David looked at Sarah with an expression of profound gratitude. "Sarah, I hope this does not sound presumptuous, but I have been doing some research about you since I learned your name. I know you work long hours here and that you are caring for your mother while struggling financially." Sarah felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Mr. Harrison, I appreciate your concern, but I do not need charity. I was just doing my job that night. That is exactly why I want to help, David replied gently. You went far beyond your job requirements. You donated your own blood after a 12-hour shift to save a complete stranger. That kind of selflessness is rare, and it should be recognized. David paused, glancing at his daughter, who was watching the conversation with serious eyes. Sarah, I am the Chief Executive Officer of Harrison Industries. I have been looking for someone I can trust to help manage my household and provide care for Emma when my work requires me to travel. The position would come with a substantial salary, full benefits, and housing in a guest cottage on my property. Sarah stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. Mr. Harrison, that is incredibly generous, but I do not understand why you would offer this to me. David's expression grew serious. Because you saved my life without expecting anything in return. Because you put someone else's needs before your own when you were exhausted and had every reason to go home. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Emma tugged on her father's jacket. Daddy, is Miss Sarah going to come live with us and help take care of me? David smiled at his daughter, then looked back at Sarah. That would be up to Miss Sarah, Emma. But I hope she will consider it. Over the following week, Sarah visited David's home to meet with him and Emma and to see the position he was offering. The guest cottage was larger and more comfortable than her current apartment, and the salary would allow her to move her mother to the excellent care facility she had been hoping for. More importantly, Sarah discovered that David was a devoted, single father who was genuinely looking for someone to provide stability and care for Emma when his business responsibilities took him away from home. Emma's mother had died when she was very young, and David had been struggling to balance his demanding career with his commitment to being a good father. Sarah, David said as they sat in his garden while Emma played nearby, I want you to know that this offer has nothing to do with feeling obligated because of the blood donation. I have been looking for the right person to help with Emma for months, but I never found anyone I felt I could trust completely. Sarah watched Emma playing with her dolls, talking to them in the gentle way that suggested she was a kind, well-cared-for child. David, what happened that night in the emergency room was not about creating a debt between us. I would have done the same for anyone. I know, David replied. That is exactly why I know you are the right person for this position. You care about people, not because of what they can do for you, but because it is who you are. 3 months. Later, Sarah had settled into her new role as household manager and Emma's caregiver. She had been able to move her mother to the finest assisted living facility in the city, where she received excellent care and had made new friends among the other residents. Emma had become the daughter Sarah had never had the opportunity to have, and their relationship had grown into something beautiful and natural. Sarah helped with homework, attended school events, and provided the kind of nurturing presence that Emma had been missing since losing her mother. David had discovered that Sarah brought not just professional competence to his household, but a warmth and stability that made his house feel like a true home for the first time since his wife's death. One evening, as they sat together watching Emma perform a song she had learned at school, David turned to Sarah with a serious expression. Sarah, I need to tell you something that I probably should have said months ago. Sarah looked at him with curiosity, noting something different in his voice. When I offered you this position, I told myself it was purely professional, a way to repay a debt and solve a practical problem, David continued. But the truth is that from the moment I met you in that hospital, I was drawn to your kindness, your strength, and your genuineness. Sarah felt her heart begin to race as she understood what David was trying to say. I have fallen in love with you, Sarah, not because you saved my life, but because of who you are every single day. The way you care for Emma, the way you treat everyone with respect and kindness, the way you make our house feel like a family. Sarah looked at this man who had come into her life through such unexpected circumstances, and realized that her feelings for him had grown far beyond professional respect. David, I love you too. And I love Emma as if she were my own daughter." Emma, who had been listening from across the room, ran over and threw her arms around both of them. "Does this mean Sarah gets to be my real mommy now?" 2 years later, at their wedding ceremony held in the same garden where David had first offered Sarah the position, the hospital chaplain who performed the ceremony spoke about how God sometimes uses our willingness to help others as the path to our own blessings. Sarah gave her blood to save David's life, never knowing that in doing so she was also saving her own future, the chaplain said. Sometimes when we give without expecting anything in return, life gives us back more than we ever imagined possible. They exchanged vows. Sarah reflected on how a single decision to help a stranger had transformed everything about her life. The blood she had donated to save David had somehow also transfused new life into her own dreams and possibilities. The gift that had begun as medical necessity had become the foundation of a love story, proving that sometimes the most important donations we make are not the ones that save lives, but the ones that create them.